This programme is about you, it's about me, and it's about drugs. And if you're expecting a horror story, then forget it. We're here to talk about us and to set the facts straight about drugs and to look at the choices you've got to make when a drug is offered.
Some drugs are against the law. Amphetamines, heroin, cocaine, cannabis.
And there are some medicines that people get from the doctor, like tranquilizers and sleeping pills.
But some medicines can be bought by anyone, like aspirin, cough syrup, stuff like that.
Then, there's the things we don't think of as drugs. You know, whiskey, beer, cider, lager, wine. They all contain alcohol. Then there's cigarettes, pipe tobacco, snuff. They all contain nicotine.
There are some even more everyday products that contain drugs too, like coffee and soft drinks.
Some people would argue about that. This whole programme is about drugs and the feelings we've got about them. We're going to show you how drugs work. We'll act out scenes of what it's like to be offered a drug and how a habit starts. In fact, we're going to have a party.
No, that's excellent. So you're right.
Here, Dave, so did you get in? Here, Chair, I've brought some.
Yeah, just put on your pants. We're going to have a great time. We're going to do some thinking too. One of the first questions to answer is what is a drug and what is not. What about coffee? It is a kind of drug, along with tea and some other soft drinks, because they contain the stimulant caffeine. But most people think nothing of drinking tea and coffee, and there's no restriction in buying them, whatever age you are. But only 100 years ago, when coffee was first introduced, it was a very different story. There was a lot of bother about it. Coffee houses were seen as pretty dangerous places, but coffee was never banned. And today, most people don't think of it as a drug, although some advertising does make it sound like one.
When you need a kick from life and you want a lift, then only the best coffee is good enough.
Then, what about alcohol? Is that a drug? Like coffee, it hasn't always been readily accepted. There was a time when many people believed it should be banned. And in some American states, it was illegal for anyone to make or sell it. But drinking has always been recognised as a source of trouble for both adults and young people.
People go out, have a few drinks, come out the pub or wherever they've been, and then indulge in what quite often starts off as horseplay, but then develops into either criminal damage or to assault some people.
Charge, right? Tell me the charge.
Suspicion of assault, mate, all right?
I know.
I'm the gentleman up there.
Good.
But the drug that has caused the most bother lately is heroin. It comes from the opium poppy. Heroin can be injected, sniffed, or you can smoke it. And people really do get very worried about it.
You don't want anyone else to know, you know,
Yeah, and you don't want it to be that heavy, you know. You want it to be pot only or something like that, you know. And then when you realise it and it hits you, you feel ashamed. And that's, I think, why parents don't stand up and talk. You feel ashamed, ashamed.
You got vexed, mate. You just got vexed, mate. Yep. You still got vexed either way.
So what is the truth about drugs today? Legal and illegal? And what do you know about them? There are fact sheets to go with this programme. They put the facts at your fingertips. You can look at the fact sheets now.
It's not working.
puts you out of your mind.
No, it's OK if you know what you're doing.
Oh, it's a lot of fuss about nothing. I don't think there's that much to it.
It can take over your life.
Look, my friend took it. Didn't feel a thing.
Well, I think that all depends.
Depends on what?
People argue about what drugs are and what they can do. They even disagree about the most basic facts. It's a bit confusing, but the effect of a drug depends on the person taking it and the situation they're in, as well as on the drug itself. But there are a few things you can be sure of. There's the way drugs affect your body, for example. It's the same for them all, but let's start with alcohol. You have an alcoholic drink and it goes to your stomach as you swallow. The alcohol gets through the wall of your stomach and into your blood. The blood's always on the move. It goes all around your body. So soon, the alcohol is everywhere, including your brain. Let's take another example. Nicotine from tobacco. You light up, take a puff, the smoke goes into your lungs. Your lungs absorb some of the nicotine. Then, the same as with alcohol, some of the nicotine reaches your brain. Of course, people sometimes inject drugs straight into their blood. That way, they get to the brain all the quicker. It's the same with all drugs. They are carried around in your bloodstream and get to your brain. But, and this is the big but, like I said, how you feel depends on more than just the drug itself. It also depends on the situation you're in.
Go on then, what is it? Something I shouldn't say?
Look, Kerry, and you can't say it. No.
All right, then I'll take it.
No, Kerry, you're so strong. Just leave me alone. No, it's not yours, leave. Kerry.
Bit of relaxed fun, that. But it's not always like that. Suppose the atmosphere was different.
Look, we could go another time. I can't let my mum down.
It's not fair. How was I supposed to know you can't come?
Well, you didn't ask me.
Look, I've bought the tickets.
Look, I won't go with you now anyway. Not if you're going to shout at me.
I bet you're going with someone else. You care.
Oh, you pig.
Sometimes, alcohol or drugs don't seem to be giving anyone a good time. They just seem to make things worse. Other times, things are fine. Where you are, who you are with, makes a difference to what you feel. But so does the mood you're in. If a person is in a zappy mood, feeling happy with the world, then they're more likely to enjoy whatever they're taking. That's not just drugs. It could go for ice cream or anything else. But when things aren't going too well, any bad feelings can be made worse by taking a drug. It doesn't make any difference whether the drug is legal or not.
I won't go with you now anyway. Not if you're going to shout at me.
The point is, the feelings that drugs can give you can depend on the feelings you already have.
Look, Joey loves you, all right? Just go and sit there.
But that's not all. Of course, it all depends on how much you take. So the question is, what effects will you get if you smoke, drink, or try other drugs?
Yeah, what are you most likely to take?
And how much would you take?
Where will it happen?
Who will you be with?
What will it be like?
You might say that you'd never try any drug that was against the law. But maybe, when you were younger, you thought you'd never touch cigarettes or alcohol. So the questions do have to be answered. You've got to ask yourself, what would it be like?
I don't know why anyone takes drugs at all.
Oh, come off it. Everybody knows why.
But what makes them try in the first place?
Well, they're just stupid, aren't they?
I know what he means. It's 'cause they're chick-free whoppers.
So, listen, come here, right? It is because it gives them a wicked buzz.
It's because they're rebels.
It's curiosity, my dear Watson.
They're just doing it to keep me with a crowd. Now, come on, who wants a baby, man?
Or could it be just the fashion? Any of those reasons might be true for someone. Pleasure, rebellion, curiosity, or just keeping in with the crowd. But the reason for starting might be much more simple.
Oh, see if it gets better. That's what I'm talking about. Still. Oh, dear.
That good?
Yeah. Oh. There you go, Chris.
Cheers, Paul.
One reason for starting is being offered it.
Oi, didn't know you smoked.
I haven't before.
For everyone who's tried a drug, whether it's legal or not, there's a very first step. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? You have to have been offered it before you can take it. And if you haven't been offered a drug before, you can't be absolutely sure how you would react, can you?
I mean, where would it be?
What would it be like?
And what would you do?
Those are important questions, but most people have some answers already, because some of those things have already been offered to them. You can use your experiences with alcohol and cigarettes to answer the questions about other drugs. So it's worth remembering. What was it like, and how did you feel?
Want to try some?
Here's the important point. The chance to try a drug that's against the law, like cannabis, heroin, pills, cocaine, anything. It's not very different from being offered a legal one. The situation can be much the same. It's only the drug that's different. Same situation, new drug. But there is one important difference. Now, I don't know about you, but if it was me that was offered something new, something I didn't know anything about, I'd ask myself some pretty serious questions.
Is it legal?
Is it safe?
Will I be able to stop?
How will it feel?
And what will people think of me?
These are questions a lot of us may have to face. It's your turn now. What would you feel like if you were offered something new?
Charles, Mum's really mad about last night.
Can't blame her,
Look,
man.
I can't stay long.
Yeah, have a phone.
Here, have one of mine.
They say that giving up is hard to do. How does it happen that some drug habits are difficult to lose? After all, you can make a decision to try a drug once, but the very first try doesn't get you hooked. You know how it goes. First a few from your friends, then you buy your own. One packet doesn't make a habit, that's for sure. But you buy more than just the packet with that first purchase. You buy a new image of yourself, And if you stick with it, you'll soon have a habit. And a habit can be a real drag. The other side of feeling good when you have something is feeling lousy when you don't have it. That's when you start to make the drug a part of your life. You decide not to be without it. And decisions like that can cost you. They can cost you money. And they can cost you your health. It's an important question, isn't it? How do some of the people who try a drug turn into someone with a habit? Time for some medical facts. Have a look at this.
So how does someone get a drug habit?
I think it's important to be clear right from the start that it varies a great deal from one person to the next. I think what most people mean is that they've come to rely on that drug, that it's become part of their way of life, their way of coping. And as with anything else that we look at, whether the drug's legal or illegal, it involves taking the drug on a fairly regular basis.
So when does a child decide to draw the line between fun and a habit?
I think that's one of the very difficult points, because almost all kids who start to use a drug, whether that's legal or illegal, do so because they see it as positive, they see it as pleasurable, it's something they want to do, whether we agree with it or not. Now, gradually, as they get used to that drug, gradually as they begin to develop a habit, they then have to take that drug as a way of coping, as a way of keeping themselves okay. And the body, for example, gets used to the presence of the drug, and if the drug isn't there, then you feel ill.
So does everyone who tries a drug get a habit?
What happens is that a whole series of small decisions get made. There'll be decisions at every level. There'll be the time when you're offered drugs, and of people in that situation, some will use and some will not. Of those who use, not necessarily all of them will continue to use again. Of those who use again, only some will continue until they develop a drug habit. Of those who develop a drug habit, only some will continue until they get progressively worse. And all down the line, there's decisions people have got to make. And those same steps, those same decisions that lead you towards developing a drug habit, if you make the decision in the opposite direction, they'll help to lead you away from it.
So does any particular drug influence a habit?
I think we've really got to realise that all around us there's a wide range of drugs with which people might develop habits. It's not just a matter of it being heroin or other illegal drugs. There really are quite a wide range of drugs, and that whether people develop a habit or not will depend on whether they become involved in it in the first place. Have they bumped into that drug? Whether they then continue to use or not. There's choices all the way down the line.
Dr. Strang, thank you.
The message is, you've got to think twice. You've got to know the facts, and you've got to ask yourself a lot of questions about habits you've already got, and what new ones you might be getting. That calls for a bit of research. A questionnaire can help. I mean, look at me. I take caffeine every day. I get that from soft drinks and coffee. Cigarettes? Well, I don't anymore, I've given up. But then I have about 5 alcoholic drinks every week. Doesn't sound like much, but write it all down, and it adds up to habits I didn't even know I had. A habit of maybe 1,000 doses of caffeine a year. That's right, 1,000 doses. No cigarette habits, but alcohol, 250 drinks a year, and rising. As for illegal drugs, well, I haven't been offered any, so those choices are all in the future. But now it's your turn.
What's about you?
What experiences have you had?
That's good ones and bad ones.
And what habits are you getting into?
What situations are you going to have to face?
And what would you do?
Yes, what would you do? This programme is about you, it's about me, and it's about drugs. And if you're expecting a horror story, then forget it. We're here to talk about us and to set the facts straight about drugs and to look at the choices you've got to make when a drug is offered.
Some drugs are against the law. Amphetamine.
In fact, we're going to have a party.
No, that's excellent. So you're right.
Here, Dave, did you get it? Here, too, I've promised them here. Just put them in your pants. We're going to have a great time. We're going to do some thinking too. One of the first questions to answer is what is a drug and what is not? What about coffee? It is a kind of drug, along with tea and some other soft drinks, because they contain the stimulant caffeine. But most people think nothing of drinking tea and coffee, and there's no restriction in buying them, whatever age you are. But only 100 years ago, when coffee was first introduced, it was a very different story. There was a lot of bother about it. Coffee houses were seen as pretty dangerous places, but coffee was never banned. And today, most people don't think of it as a drug, although some advertising does make it sound like one.
When you need a kick from life and you want a lift, then only the best coffee is good enough.
Then, what about alcohol? Is that a drug? Like coffee, it hasn't always been readily accepted. There was a time when many people believed it should be banned. And in some American states, it was illegal for anyone to make or sell it. But drinking has always been recognised as a source of trouble for both adults and young people.
People go out, have a few drinks, come out the pub or wherever they've been, and then indulge in what quite often starts off as horseplay, but then develops into either criminal damage or to assault some people.
Charge, right? Tell me the charge.
Suspicion of assault, mate, all right?
I know.
On the gentleman up there.
Good.
But the drug that has caused the most bother lately is heroin. It comes from the open...
Heroin, cocaine, cannabis.
And there are some medicines that people get from the doctor, like tranquilizers and sleeping pills.
But some medicines can be bought by anyone, like aspirin, cough syrup, stuff like that.
Then, there's the things we don't think of as drugs. You know, whiskey, beer, cider, lager, wine. They all contain alcohol. Then there's cigarettes, pipe tobacco, snuff. They all contain nicotine.
There are some even more everyday products that contain drugs too, like coffee and soft drinks.
Some people would argue about that. This whole programme is about drugs and the feelings we've got about them. We're going to show you how drugs work. We'll act out scenes of what it's like to be offered a drug and how habit starts.